Today we will talk about signals, endless ropes, and empty sledges. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're absolutely new to the channel, you should really watch the nutshell video first. It's just 90 seconds and will really help you to fully understand the content of this and other episodes. On the construction site, we need some means of long-range communication. For example, the team at the foot of the pyramid will want to signal the large treadmill, stone is attached, start pulling. Or the team that lays the stone will want to signal the small treadmill, stone is approaching, 1 meter left, stop. As shouting is not an option and walkie-talkies weren't invented yet, the only remaining method would be visuals. You may think of flags of different colors, but if the wind blows directly from the north or the south, you will have a hard time to determine the color of the flag. You could also think of signs in different shapes, like circle, triangle, square, but probably the easiest way are arm signals, as in stone is approaching, 1 meter left, stop. So we will need one guy at the source of the information and another guy at the receiving end, but as there is no line of sight between them, we will have repeaters at the edges of the pyramid, whose only task is to watch the source or another repeater and imitate that movement. My first idea was to have the signal guy at the treadmill shout the commands to the workers. But on a second thought, that's a pretty bad idea, because the commands could easily be executed by the wrong treadmill, because we have several treadmills there. So it would be much better to have the signal guy stand at the ground, some 10 or 5 meters away from the treadmill, so every worker on the treadmill could easily see him by just looking straight forward. Another important thing to consider is about the rope. Once we have delivered the stone, most of the rope is down there at the treadmill. So we need a small team to pull it back for the next stone. That would work, but it's also pretty time consuming. So let's take a rope twice as long and tie the ends together. We don't use a normal knot for that. Sailors have a special knot called a splice. The strands of both ends are separated and then interwoven. The result looks like this. Now we have an endless rope, but we will need to modify our setup a little bit for that endless rope. First, we will add another peg to our portals to support 2 ropes. Second, we will use some poles on both ends, behind the treadmill and behind the delivery point at the foot of the pyramid, as a turning point for the rope. And third, we will no longer attach the rope directly to the stone. Instead, we take a short rope and tie it to the stone on one end and use our trusty stopper knot to attach into the main rope. The next question on our list is about empty sledges. Once we have delivered the stone, we have an empty sledge that has to go back to the quarry somehow. If we used a ramp and a pulling team, the rather exhausted pulling team would stand right next to it, and they would have to walk down the ramp back to the quarry anyway, so they can pull the empty sledge on their way down. But our pulling team stops at the foot of the pyramid. But with the endless rope, we have one part of the rope pulling down in the direction of the quarry. So let's just tie the empty sledge to that downward pointing part of the rope, and it will be drawn back to the portal. If we want to use the same rail for the empty sledge to go back, we have to consider a couple of things. Our rail system was not designed to be used in both directions, so the sledge could easily get stuck at the connections. If we turn the sledge around 180 degrees, we might get away with the beveling of the slides. That could probably guide the sledge onto the rails again, but it would be a rather bumpy ride and cause some wear and tear. So we better add some wedges at the connections to guide the sledge smoothly onto the next rail. We can easily predict where the empty sledge will meet the next stone, so we can position a team there that lifts the sledge from the rail, waits until the stone has passed by, then puts the sledge back onto the rails and let the stopper knot bite again. That would work. However, I don't really like that method. I would rather lay a second rail so we don't need that team for the bypass maneuver. When the sledge, the empty sledge, reaches the near-end portal, it has to be taken from the rail, turned around, and put on the slope. And as we cannot execute that bypass maneuver on the slope, we need a second rail anyway. The empty sledge will then be tied to the downward leading part of the main rope, and when the next stone goes up, our empty sledge will smoothly slide down to the foot of the pyramid. Mission accomplished. That's it for today. Please like, share and subscribe. And no, we still don't have a complete method to build even the simplest pyramid. We still have to answer 2 more questions. So see you in the next one.